This is a frightening story of a girl who was alone at home one night, for the first time. She has a dog to keep her company. The girl listens on the news about a serial killer on the loose. She goes to sleep after locking all the doors and windows but for one, which doesn't close. Suddenly she is awakened by a dripping sound. Scared thoroughly, she tries to go back to sleep and puts her hand down the bed for a reassuring lick from her dog. As the dripping sound continues, she goes to check on the taps in the kitchen, bathroom, and everywhere else but finds nothing. She returns to her bedroom and puts the hand down again for the dog to lick. The dripping sound continues and the girl is too frightened to fall asleep. But as her hand gets licked from under the bed, she slowly falls asleep. In the morning, when she opens the closet, she finds her dog killed and hanged upside down. The dripping sound was from the dog's blood. On the closet doors, she sees a message: humans can lick, too. Two best friends, Meg and Samantha, live in the same room of the college dormitory. Samantha goes out for a party with her date while Meg stays back to study for the upcoming midterm exams. When Samantha returns from the party, lights are all turned off. She does not switch on the lights as her friend is asleep. Early in the morning, Sam tries to wake Meg up to discuss the exams. As Meg doesn't respond, Sam hesitantly uncovers her face to wake her up. She gets horrified to discover Meg's face turned black and blue, and falls on the floor in a state of shock. She observes that Meg's study table was all messed up and finds a creepy note on the wall: "Aren't you glad you didn't turn on the lights?" The murderer must have very much been in the room when Sam came the previous night. This next eerie story is about an old man driving home late in the night when he spots a girl asking for a hitchhike. The pretty girl is dressed in a beautiful white dress. The man offers her a ride and they strike up an interesting conversation. He drops the girl at her home. Next day, while driving for work, he notices that the girl by accident has forgotten her sweater in his car. He drives towards her home to hand over the sweater. An old lady opens the door when he rings the bell. He narrates the incident which occurred last night and gives the sweater to the lady. The lady refuses to accept it, saying he is mistaken. The man is surprised and questions the lady again. He is dumbstruck and left in an unsettling situation when the lady says her daughter died in a car accident a couple of years ago. I was a freshman at a prestigious university, filled with excitement and anticipation for the new experiences that awaited me. I had always been a studious and diligent student, and the thought of studying in one of the top universities in the country was a dream come true. But as the days went by, I began to realize that university life was far from what I had imagined. The workload was overwhelming, and the pressure to excel was immense. I barely had any time for myself, let alone to explore the city or make friends. But that wasn't the worst of it. Something strange began to happen to me. I started to experience vivid nightmares that left me terrorized and exhausted. I would wake up in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat and with a feeling of dread that stayed with me for hours. I tried to ignore it, chalking it up to stress and exhaustion, but the nightmares only got worse. It was as if they were trying to tell me something, trying to warn me about a danger that I couldn't see. One night, as I lay in bed trying to calm my racing heart, I heard a strange noise coming from outside. It sounded like someone or something was scratching at my door. I tried to dismiss it as my imagination, but the scratching grew louder and more persistent. I mustered up the courage to get out of bed and investigate, but what I found was beyond my wildest nightmares. There, standing outside my door, was a figure that looked like a distorted version of myself. Its eyes were black pits, and its skin rotting. It reached out its clawed hand towards me, and I screamed in terror. The figure vanished as suddenly as it had appeared, but the memory of it stayed with me. I tried to tell myself that it was just a hallucination, but deep down, I knew that something was terribly wrong. It wasn't until I met with a local paranormal investigator that I learned the truth. The university that I was studying at was built on top of a burial ground, and the spirits of the dead were angry and restless. They were trying to warn me about the dangers that awaited me if I continued to stay there. With the help of the investigator, I was able to perform a ritual to appease the spirits and make peace with the past. The nightmare stopped, and I was able to continue my studies without fear. But the memory of that night stayed with me, a reminder that sometimes, the things that scare us the most are the ones that are the most real. I never imagined that my university experience would be as terrifying as it was. When I first started, I was excited to finally be free from the strict rules of high school and to be able to explore my passions. However, things quickly took a turn for the worse. It all started when I joined a new club on campus. It was a small group of students who were interested in paranormal activities and exploring abandoned buildings. I thought it would be a fun way to spend my weekends, exploring old buildings with like-minded individuals. But I had no idea what I was getting myself into. Our first exploration was an old abandoned hospital on the outskirts of town. As soon as we stepped inside, I could feel a sense of unease. The air was thick with dust and the only sounds we could hear were our own footsteps. We made our way through the halls, stopping to investigate any strange noises or movements we encountered. It wasn't until we reached the basement that things truly took a turn for the worse. We found a room filled with old medical equipment and a metal table in the center. As we were looking around, we heard a noise coming from one of the nearby rooms. We cautiously approached the door and peered inside, only to be met with the sight of a figure in a white lab coat hunched over a desk. We were all frozen in fear, not knowing what to do. The figure slowly turned its head and looked directly at us, revealing its twisted features. It let out a blood-curdling scream and charged at us. We ran as fast as we could, not stopping until we were outside of the building. We were all shaken by the experience and decided to call it a day. But that was only the beginning. The more we explored, the more we encountered strange and terrifying things. We found a room filled with old dolls that seemed to move on their own, and a deserted library that had a hidden basement filled with human bones. I tried to leave the group multiple times, but I was always pulled back in by the thrill of the unknown. It wasn't until our last exploration that I realized what we were really dealing with. We had decided to explore an old mental asylum on the outskirts of town. As soon as we stepped inside, we could feel a sense of dread that we had never experienced before. The air was thick with the stench of decay and the only sounds we could hear were our own racing heartbeats. As we made our way through the halls, we began to hear voices and whispers in our ears. Shadows started to move on the walls, and I could feel something cold and clammy brush against my skin. We eventually found ourselves in a small room with a single chair in the center. We could hear someone breathing heavily in the darkness, but we couldn't see anything. Suddenly, the chair spun around. We all screamed and ran for the exit, not stopping until we were outside. As we caught our breath, we realized that we had all been marked with strange marks on our skin. I left the group that day, never looking back. But the memories of those experiences still haunt me to this day. I can't help but wonder what else is lurking in the shadows, waiting to be discovered. Thank you again for joining us for another video. If you liked the video, please like, subscribe and comment down below and let us know what you would like to hear in the near future. See you all again soon.